you, Mr. Chair. Trying to get my microphone to work. Am I live? There we go. Thank you. Mr. Chair, thanks very much. I appreciate that the stated concern, stated purpose of this hearing and this legislation we're talking about today is over species recovery and delisting. On at least that much, I think both parties can agree. We want to see species recover. We want to see them delisted. That's about where it ends, though, because the premise of the bills we're considering and a lot of the debate is that the problem is that we're not recovering more species because we're somehow listing too many, or that we're somehow spending too much time on lawsuits that seek listing, and I find that a bridge too far. We're not going to help the Endangered Species Act or the conservation and delisting of species by making it harder to list them or by making it harder to enforce the act. But it does appear to me that there's something we can do to help species recovery and delisting, and that is to actually invest in species recovery and delisting. So I have a question for our witnesses from NMFS and the Fish and Wildlife Service. I'd like to ask you how much you have requested for your various efforts to recover species in the last fiscal year, and then tell us how much was appropriated in response to those requests.
Thank you for the question. I don't have those exact numbers. We'll get them to you from the National Marine Fisheries Service.
All right. Is it fair to say that your requests have not been matched in the appropriations, that there's a shortfall?
I do not know the specific numbers. I know that since 2010, Congress has not appropriated the full amount we've requested for at least Pacific salmon. There's been a shortfall there where the President has requested more than we have received. In 2014, we received some of those numbers back, so I don't know if that trend continues.
All right, Mr. Bean, can I ask you, I know you have requested millions in cooperative recovery and delisting efforts. Tell us about how the appropriations have matched that.
I only know part of the answer to your question, which is for the FY15 budget request, the service has requested an $18 million increase for recovery-related purposes.
How many species are currently listed as warranted but precluded because your agencies lack resources to implement adequate protections? Do either of you know?
I do not believe that NMFS has any listed as warranted but precluded.
I don't know the precise number. My guess is in the ballpark of 150 or so for the Fish and Wildlife Service. That may give or take 20.
My information is that you've got 145 candidate species, according to the Fish and Wildlife Service website, 51 species currently proposed for listing, according to your website. Can either of you identify any currently protected or listed species whose recovery you think would benefit from the passage of any of these four bills?
I cannot. I think the concern that I expressed was that these bills, although they are directed at the purpose that we share of improving transparency and improving reliance upon good science, I do not see how these bills will increase the resources or increase the effectiveness of the tools we now have to recover species. If I can say a word just about recovering species, so far in this administration, some 11 species have been recovered and delisted due to recovery, which is more than in any prior administration. There are indeed 9 others proposed for delisting because of recovery. So we're making good progress in recovering and delisting species, but there are a lot of species that are still a long ways from recovery that are clearly doing very well compared to their historical numbers. And among them, California condors, black-footed ferrets, Florida manatees, and whooping cranes, all of which are at or near their historic highs over the last half century or more, all of which will remain endangered species for many more years because they were reduced to very low numbers, but all of which are clearly major successes for the Endangered Species Act, even though they are still endangered species not yet recovered.
All right, Mr. Roush?
I concur with Mr. Bean's statements regarding the effects of these bills on recovery. I do not see a direct link between these bills and efforts to recover species, and I would also echo his comments about the success on recovery that this administration has had. There are large efforts that have been made, and I think we can all be proud of those.
All right, thank you.